Cool. All right. First of all, thank you very much for joining this webinar session today, right? And this is basically based on multiple, feedback where we had certain sessions planned during in the month of July, August, where we had the proper map sessions, right? And post that we received feedback from merchants like, hey, can we have some insights around how to go globally, right? And apart from that, I have also seen few of the merchants writing email to us about like, hey, we would like to have such sessions. So taking inspirations from that and also seeing the growing behavior of Indian D2C segments going to the outside world, right? So we thought like this would be the right time to have such a session so that we could enable you guys better in your successful business abroad, right? So let me share my screen with a very quick presentation. I'm going to take less than 5 minutes and then I will hand it over to the actual presenters for the session. So just bear with me for 5 minutes. All right, so this is in continuation to our map program that we have already had. So you guys are part of the RAID group where we are continuously having this kind of a strategic discussion and certain housekeeping, the same housekeeping slide that I've just copy pasted. So all the presentations and slides will be shared with you guys over the email after the presentation. So do not worry about taking notes or anything that you want to do. And of course, there is going to be 4 sessions and each sessions will have its dedicated Q&A. So you can feel free to ask any questions during the Q&A. Just unmute yourself and ask for the questions. And during the time of presentation, if you have still any questions that you wanted to note it down, you can put it in the chat box. We'll be happy to answer them, right? And if there are any queries further after this session, as always, please drop an email to map2022@shopify.com. And this is pretty much the agenda. It's going to be broadly me starting off with why we are having this webinar, right? And I'll set the objectives, and then there is going to be 4 sessions followed, each roughly around 15 minutes. So it will be started off by Saurav. We have Saurav now, the co-founder of Marmeto, who's going to touch upon basics on how should your international store look like and how you should go about it. What are the 2 different ways to do it, and the important plugins to have, and the pros and cons of it, right? Some basic stuff in getting ready your international store, right? So he's the tech guy for you today. Like if you have anything around like the important plugins that you need to have, how to make sure your store is ready for the international customers, go, right? The second one will be, of course, the most important pillar to be successful in cross-border business is the payments, right? So we have Satyam Singh from Razorpay, who is going to walk us through like what are the different pain points that merchants have been facing and how those things can be solved and how specifically Razorpay can help solve those solutions, right? And the third one, of course, logistics being one more key pillar. Richa Singh here from Delivery is going to walk us through the common basic, pain points that merchant faces while doing cross-border business from a logistics perspective, and she's going to help answer a few of them, right? And then the last but not the least, the most important lever for growing your business, marketing, right? And we have our own Anshuk from Adyogi, who is going to now take us through like what are all the different channels to go about doing a business in international markets, right? So looking forward for all those 4 sessions. And for me, it's very simple. At the end of the session, if these 5 points are met, basically like if you know how to set up your cross-border store, and if you know how to set up your right international payment platform, and if you know the different compliance requirements to ship your product, and if you know like what is the right logistic solutions that you should go behind, and if you're able to devise your own international marketing plan, then the objective for the session is met, right? I hope these things will be met, but open to feedback at the end of the sessions. And thank you once again, the team Razorpay, Delivery, Adyogi, Marmeto, who has taken time to put this together for us. Thank you guys once again. And just a very, very brief bit of why now cross-border, especially with Shopify, right? Now we have seen an increasing trend as to close to like 1 in 5 Shopify merchants actually sell globally. right? So which is like a good indicator and early signal for people looking to move towards the exports. And what we have seen is like for those merchants who are doing exports, we have seen an 20 to 25% higher order value versus their domestic cart values, right? Which is again a key booster, both from a P&L perspective as well as from the front end perspective, right? And then the top categories that you have seen is obviously like apparel, home, health, and beauty. There are many more. There are no as such any restriction towards categories, but these are the top three categories that you have seen are rising in the D2C export world. And as you know, like there are a lot of traditional merchants with Shopify, and they are even generating close to like on an average 25% of their revenue today actually comes from cross-border business. So it's a huge opportunity for many of you guys to tap on, right? And the last but not least, you guys know this better, but just to put it in perspective, our top export markets are US, obviously, followed by the EU markets, Australia, and the Middle East, right? So that's how at least we are seeing this trend with Shopify. And as Shopify, what we have done is we wanted to cover those three pillars. As you already know, like with logistics, we have solutions from various partners like Delivery, Shiprocket, DHL, and many more. And we also have now integrated payment solutions. I think this last year alone, like we have launched two payment solutions for you guys. So the options are plethora for you guys to pick and choose the right one for you guys. And of course, your store can be linked to all the international marketing channels here, right? So I think this is the small flywheel that we put together in terms of enabling our merchants to go global. And with this, I will hand this over to Saurav, who's going to talk through like the basics of setting up your international store, right? So keep going and keep your questions ready for Saurav. Over to you, Saurav.
Well, thanks, Jagan. Uh, Jagan said a very fancy line. He said, I'm your tech guy today, so I'll just avoid. I'll just very clearly explain that I will take all the tech queries and I will try to possibly help in the best way possible. What I'll do is, a couple of days back, also we had a very similar discussion on cross border, and I said that let me tell you the story of what I have understood so far in terms of business, and I'm sure you will understand the crux of it. And for anything in detail, we definitely can have separate sessions. To tell about me, to start from there, I'm a co-founder of Marmeto. Marmeto is India's first Shopify Plus agency. We are a 5.5-year-old company headquartered in Bangalore, close to a team of 80 people right now, and we power most of the enterprises in India. We have been working with Shopify very, very closely all this while, and we have seen the journey so far in terms of India, of how it has evolved. Let me present my screen and then I'll walk you through. Yeah, is it visible?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So, like I said, that the story, what I would like to present today is not very pumped in with a lot of data, because all the other presenters would definitely come with that. I'll come with the very business level points, and you will, I'm sure, relate with it. The first question that often people ask is when to go global. And with my personal experience of talking to merchants with whom we have walked the global journey, they said that each brand's journey is very different. But yes, as a sum of that, these are some 5 points that come up as their main points. The first one was current market saturation. When they say that sort of the cost of business to penetrate in the current market is much more higher, and I feel it's much more easier to move into a new market and then just sail through. That's primarily the most answered point to go global. The second one came in was depremiumization. The point being that when they launched the product, they were premium in the market, and now there are better substitutes to it. So they feel that, yeah, it's the right time to move into other markets that are going to be mature and sell their products there. The other three are slightly connected. The first one is a scalable product where you know that the time to go into a new market and quickly start your operations is much more is very fast, is very, very fast. I think that's one way when you understand that, hey, why to sail in one country or region or locality, but to instead move. If you also have a very clear go-to-market, which ideally is a key, not just in being global, but being anywhere, you are in the right step to go global. And a point that a couple of merchants also touched, which I felt important, was that the brands launched as being unique, but now they are no longer unique in the segment. Other brands have picked up the same USPs, and now there are other alternatives present. So if they feel that, hey, it's better that we float around and kill the red ocean zone. So these are some 5 key points on how brands choose, or when brands decide to go global about it. Now, when I talk that, okay, if a brand goes global, what are the advantages of it? Definitely product enhancement. When a brand goes global, it meets through people from different lifestyles. It meets through systems and that are of different mindsets, made with very different composition, thought process. So your product goes through a very global transition, and feedbacks, inquiries, loops, everything that you get is from a global scale point. So if you are able to capture those and make change in the product, it really helps you become globally very, very fast. Credibility and trust is the second point that definitely no questions asked. If we just say that the identifier even today's language is that, hey, do you know this brand? And if we say no, and the first answer could be that, hey, it's a global brand. That in itself is a punchline to say that if something is global, the credibility and trust is very, very high. And definitely clubbed, the top 2 points comes up with the brand value. So if you see any brand's journey, if you have closely observed, the moment they go global, and if they are really stuck to making changes in their products, they have set up a very different brand value for themselves. So these are some top advantages, I would say, when a brand chooses to go global. Now, definitely, there's a thin line between what I will cover here and what actually should be there. The point is, how to start globally with Shopify is what I'm picking up here. Whereas, if we talk about how to start to go global, the market penetrations could be through different ways. It could be through marketplaces and through all other options. What I am covering is a bit narrowed approach, is how to cover or how to go global in an online store concept. Now we have 2 primary options. One is a single store option, where you go global with your single store in hand, and that is powered by a lot of plugins and applications that can support all the problems that you can overcome in your global expansion. The next point is, if you are scaling globally, you can go with multi-store, which could be location-wise unique storefronts. I'll cover these in details in the later, but primarily considering on Shopify, we have these 2 options to go forward with. Now, when we talk about single store, a very, very clear definition could be, with this language itself, is that we have only one store, and that store is helping me deliver and receive payments and follow compliances all globally. I need not go to different locations. Now, these are some primary problems that you have to take care of when you think of your store going global. First is, it could be geotagging and redirections, that the people who are searching from the right region get the right kind of designs you want to see, get the right kind of prices you want to see, get the right kind of language you want to see. And other 2 points are followed by the next 2 point, which is currency conversion, language selected. So from a storefront point of view, if you think what could happen or what could be different for a person who might be shopping from US and the site is in India, it could be that when they land, they should be able to see the prices in their own language. They should be able to see the store in their own language. They should be able to see specific sections that you have designed for different segments. So these are some primary keys that you need to solve when you go with a single store approach. Now, for each of these stores, we have selected a couple of apps here, and I would say there is no bias towards any of these apps. But yes, these apps are specifically picked by right reviews and our personal experiences of working with them. You can choose your own, and it could be that with your own native app, something can fit in. If you face any problems in terms of integrating an app on your Shopify store, you can definitely help you understand what wrong you are doing and what could be done better. But these are some apps that we feel can help you solve those problems faster and easier. Here is an example of the same. If you see the store example, you have a currency converter where you have an option to choose a currency, and on your product pages and other pages, you see the same kind of currency, and you are able to go and check out with the currency. And it helps you build credibility fast. It helps the user navigation fast. It helps them understand that on a global level, they have taken care of the audiences who are comfortable shopping in a particular. So yeah, this is what about it is. Now, definitely, every way has something that you get and something that you lose. Um, I would say the advantages of a single store are that they are the best to start out. If you want to taste the waters, go with a single store approach. They are easy to launch because, like I have showed you, there are a couple of integrations you do, and at a very basic but sorted level, you will be able to launch. People land on the store, see the kind of features you want to show them, see the kind of currency, see the kind of language, and they will be able to shop. So they're definitely easy to launch. Since it's a single store, you have a single Shopify dashboard to manage and see all your data and traffics. Same related cost, because you are not managing a lot of stores, the whole overall tech management cost becomes low and you have uniformity. But picking the same angles, you say, like I said, you get some, you lose some. The customizations are low because the moment you increase customizations and start creating uniqueness on a same storefront, it definitely would start impacting your speed. Scalability challenges, because you really can't make diverse changes. What we have covered in the past slides were also minimum viable changes. Plugin heavy the moment you think about it. Third party dependencies, like I have just mentioned, that if you are using a plugin and if you are facing some problems, let us know, which could be a very common problem because it's such a vast community, such vast options exist for each localized solutions. So that dependency is something you have to take care of. And if the plugin part and third parties part are not done properly, store speed issue is something that we often face. So this is a crux about single store layout, and we will move to the multi-store layout from here. Now, definitely, multi-store layout comes from a point that you know where you have to scale, you know what it needs to scale, and you are all set with it. In this case, multi-store layout is obviously the best option because you can give a much more better experience to your consumers in terms of customizing the entire storefront for them, in terms of integrating the best delivery and logistic partners that have localized solutions, in terms of getting a whole and soul single analytics to understand and maybe scale, run offers, and do a lot more. So that's what multi-store is about. Very, there is no bias towards which one would be better. Single store, if you are starting new, single store layout is an option. But yes, when we talk about scaling globally, multi-store is something that is our go-to step. You see examples for a store that has both Koski. You see Koski.com is Indian, and you see us.koski.com is an international store, and you will have a whole different set of experiences there. You can do much more than what you will feel a bit resistance on doing on single store because of plugins and speed issues, but you are all out for it and going global. This is one example. How these have performed in terms of marketing, I'm sure we also covered it in the latest, is you will understand that yes, what are the impact of multi-stores in terms of going global. Another example could be Trendia, where they have trendia.in and trendia.co, and they are doing quite good in terms of business, not just from a technical standpoint, but also from a marketing standpoint. And like I said, I'm covering all of these from very business level. Each of these slides in itself could be webinar, and wherever you feel you can take a note of those slides, you can email us and we'll give you separate sessions in details about each of them. Coming on to the pros and cons of it, I feel The pro is that you go global and you go local in each global. You have unique storefronts, customize them as per consumer behavior, make changes, uh, drive do heat maps, and do a lot more. Highly customizable, you can think of, and it's possible. It's built to scale. The Shopify enterprise version that you talk about, it's made that okay, the different storefronts can help you achieve this globalization problem. Good store speed, since you are not very plugin heavy, since you're not fitting it all in one box. You will be able to manage a great store speed, and it's plugin light because as per all the above reasons. When we talk about the disadvantages, which I feel is not a disadvantage but again an advantage in its own sense, and as compared to a single store, it could be disadvantages: a dedicated management. And I feel it's a must. So instead of a con, it could be a must, that yes, definitely you need a dedicated management to manage all these storefronts, look at inventories, look at data, make changes accordingly. And definitely the dedicated management will end up into getting a good sale. High cost management is what is compared to a single store option. So I wrote this to get your attention, and then say that high cost is not high cost in terms of compared to technology that you get outside, but high cost management is when you compare it with a single store option. And due to very very obvious reasons, that it supports quite a lot of customizations, and it supports a lot of uniqueness that you can do to scale faster, scale better, and multiple storefronts. When we talk about an advantage of it is that you get all the data separately, you can play with them. And a disadvantage is that you get all the data separately. It's just that how your team looks at it. But like I said, it's a must rather than a con. So this is broadly the pros and cons about it. Now when I club it all together, I feel the first reason or the first thing that you should be very careful is that why do you want to go global? What is your pain point and what do you feel? Because each pain point will help you choose one or the other way ahead, will help you choose not just one the other way, to also help you choose which what things to design, what things to develop, what partners to touch base. So your why has to be very very careful. The second part is compliance. Richa will also talk about it, and I feel yes, before you even think of technology, think of compliance. It's important. Then I say that have a technological mindset. That yes, when you think of going global, a lot of things start changing. When you meet partners, they will help you understand a lot more about external markets. So you should always be prepared with a technological mindset that uh, I need to make changes in order to get better. Think about the future and be prepared with that mindset. Otherwise, it will all look too heavy. And before you even start, you will feel that no, it's costly, and it's a lot more tech. It's complicated. So I would say be prepared that yes, it might take some cost, it might take some time, but we are not talking about a feature, we are talking about going global. So think of that aim, and this mindset will help you be that. The logistics and payment integrations, which even our teams ahead will help you understand, is that how important it is to get the best partners for a global scaling point. It is not just about having a fancy storefront, but consumers have no, there is a UX break in terms of payment, and then there are solution breaks in terms of payments, or even the storefront and payments are successful, and then consumers are waiting for a while to get logistics in the right fashion. So I think everything goes together well. You goes together collaborated. So pick up the best partners in your technology field, logistic field, payments field, and then you go global. And yes, start single, go multi. This is a personal bias. We come from a bootstrapped company formation. We say that start with the validation point first by a single store feature, and once you are convinced that yes, the product is a good fit, you have tried it all, it's time to go multi, then you can start expansion. So these are some key takeaways that I would like to give. And with this, I think I would conclude now. Rest, we say that either you step forward into growth by going global, or otherwise, at least you will learn everything that needs you to make changes in your products and technologies. So you'll be in a safer hand. So, at any case, there is no loss. Feel free to try this. Thank you. With this, I'll move it to Jagan.
Thank you very much, Saurav. I particularly like this statement because it's absolutely like no risk. Like you're going to try, or you're coming back to your own safe zone, right? Which is your domestic goal. Thank you once again. I think there have been a lot of questions on the chat box, but I'll go with Chaitanya first because he was the first one to raise the hand. So, guys, please feel free to raise your hands so that we can take everyone's questions.
Sure. Thank you, Jagan. Hi, Saurav. Thank you. So we run a standalone store. We cater globally, right? Now, my question to you is, it's working. It's working great. Why would I want to spend more money, set up a multi-store? I mean, how does it benefit me? We are already selling to Australia, Singapore, Canada, USA, you name it, right? Even the Saudi. So
I would say, yeah, sorry, I interrupted.
no problem. Go ahead. Because I mean, how does it benefit us?
I tell you.
In a sense, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Correct. I would say that if ain't broke, what you said, it's just about what are the breaking parameters that we are considering. If you say that your single store is working perfectly fine, and if you say that the overall investment on business that you are making is actually making sense, then it does not make sense to go multi. Why I would say multi is that when you work from a single store option and over a while you understand that, hey, I can offer a much more better consumer experience in terms of giving localized interfaces. I am understanding that the geographies in which I'm serving, the consumers buy very, very differently. I need to have separate kind of offers to run for them. I need to group products separately. I need to have different kind of logistics and delivery partners to help them give better experiences. These are points where multi-store helps. But like I said, it's not a mandate. Every business has a different unique model. If you feel that sort of the ROI that we invest onto business and the kind of returns we are getting and the technology framework is something that you don't hear a complaint about, I would say that not to go. But I will also add one more point here that you can share the store name with us, and we can do a quick review internally with our team and maybe share you some inputs that help you rethink about it.
Sure. So the feature that Shopify has recently, the functionality about the markets, right? So being able to sell in specific markets, how is that any different from what you're saying? Because so I had a customer yesterday ping me on Apple Chat and ask me, so I'm going to send you the raw material. Can you please get it done? So the air freight for her to ship from Great Britain to India and me sending it back itself will cost twice as much, right? So I let her know that it doesn't make sense for you to ship, and then she assumed we were based out of London. So
I think about Shopify markets and how it can defend. I will ask Jagan and Anant also to highlight from a Shopify standpoint rather than not just from a technology standpoint.
Okay.
Anant, you want to touch about Shopify markets?
So Shopify Markets actually provides you the tools that is necessary per se to actually sell internationally. But from a use case perspective, as Saurav mentioned, you will have to go with respect to what exactly it's the right fit for you. And like this is something that not great at saying it, but markets as a whole feature does not work for an Indian merchant because we would actually need to have Shopify's payments to support multi-currency, which becomes the biggest factor, right, when we talk about it. And the question that you asked, Saurav, as well, like, can't we do the same thing with the same single store or multiple stores as well? Markets precisely looks to solve this problem per se. So if you have access to Shopify payments, it gives you payments plus multi-currency checkout plus translations plus everything else in a whole go. And even I'll have to check on this again, but the customs and the taxation perspective for markets is taken care from a much better perspective.
Okay.
Got
Fair enough. Thanks.
Thanks, Tanya. I will go with Shalimar Exports next.
Yeah. Hi, Jagan. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going through some of the examples that you guys had shared. So I went through this website called tilfi.com, and I was surprised to see that they were able to process some checkouts in foreign currencies as well. So how is that being enabled uh, from an Indian merchant standpoint?
That's a solution that Saurav and his team has developed. So let's Saurav talk about it.
Yeah, so that I think we have done some level of customizations in order to support this feature for the merchant, and it is done not just as storefront customization. It is done in coordination with a payment gateway that works in the backend. So I can have your email ID and I can have my team walk you through the entire solution. But to tell you on Shopify, it's possible you see it happening, and that can be done.
Okay, so is it possible only on Shopify Plus or normal plans also?
So what we have developed is possible on Plus.
Okay. If see, I'm currently
Uh,
on that plan.
Sorry, your voice broke.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So currently, I am on Shopify Advanced plan. So is that solution possible on Advanced plans, or do we require Plus?
We will require.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Over to Anirudh next.
No, my question was the same. Like, is it only possible in Shopify Plus to have that checkout at the end? The solution that you've created, is that only possible for Shopify Plus?
It is possible on Plus. So the
It's
idea
not
what
possible in anything else, is it?
no. Right now anything else, but the way how Shopify community is evolving, I feel that maybe with the other webinar we do, there would be other alternatives also. We are also trying to bridge, just with Shopify in the past 6 months, you see a lot of evolution is happening. You see a lot of product evolution is happening, and I'm very sure that in another year you will see it all. I will personally be saying that, hey, why Plus? You have advanced and advanced support.
Good to hear, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. And over to you, Sahil.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Saurav. This is Sahil from Talk to Crystals. I have two questions. One is that can we hide certain products because certain products are so in a single store view? Can we hide certain products because certain products are not very friendly to exports because there are some custom rules, etc. like that. And second is if how much time your team takes to implement a normal store to a single Shopify store, like what is the turnaround time, like does it take months or weeks, or it's a simple process of days and hours?
What I would say, the first question, one word answer: yes, it's possible. We can do it. We can hide products, no problem. And I would also say a very simple logic I could use is a tag or a meta field based identifier to work across each product, which we can show and hide on the storefront basis of whatever conditions we define. Number one answered. Number two, tricky question, I would say. We have launched store even in hours, and we have launched stores even working years that have not gone very successful. So I say it's a combination of what we want to launch, how we want to launch, with what all conditions and constraints. But I would say that on an average, if you are starting right now, you don't need a Marmeto or any tech agency when Shopify is there. And now the product has evolved so much that you can just set up the store on your own. And if you say that there are specific problems that you talk that, hey, sort of, can I hide them? That's when a company like Marmeto should come in place. How we work particularly, we are a bit tied up. It takes us almost 2 to 3 weeks after confirmation to pick up a project. An ideal project duration with us would work from 2 to 3 months. Reason, not just development, but also the kind of consultation and how merchants get groomed to run the store on their own. So that's how it is.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think we are bang on time for the first session. Do we have any last one question for Saurav?
No, Jagan, I think I'm good.
No.
I would take the last question myself.
Okay, I'll take that as a no. But Saurav is going to be around as well, and it's a small world, so we can easily connect as well. So please let us know if you have any of the specific questions. But for now, thank you very much, Saurav, for taking your time and taking us through the thoughts that you have around going global, right? Now, the very next one, the most important one, the money-making one or the money-losing one, I do not know, but that's around the payment solution, right? So here we have Satyam, Senior Manager from Razorpay Cross-Border Business, who is going to talk us through like what are the common pain points that merchants face when they go global, especially Indian merchants, and what are the solutions around it, right? and feel free to ask him any questions around payment related stuff, etc. Over to you, Satyam.
Thanks, Jagan, and thank you for setting up that tricky introduction. I'll take it as it goes. And thank you, Saurabh, for setting up the conversation around this, because a lot of queries that got asked to you, I think I'll be able to answer, and a lot of people will get educated on what exactly they should look out when they are looking at a payment solution provider, because that's once you have set up the store, you have got interest of buyers. How do you process those payments becomes critical. And I think once I start sharing my screen and take the entire journey through, and I'm sure a lot of these questions will get answered. So hey everyone, just a quick formal introduction here. Essentially, I'm Satyam. I'm a senior manager here at Razorpay, and I lead the cross-border export pod for Razorpay. So I'll just share my screen and take you through the journey. And so the way we are going to do this is essentially there are certain aspects of cross-border that if somebody has started would have just faced, or if somebody is mature in this audience who has been doing it for quite some time, they would have come across. And then there are these pain points that we are trying to solve for. And I'll be happy to hear your feedback on how exactly more is what you guys are looking after, in terms of, let's say, a chargeback or a fraud or a payment processing network, etc. So happy to take those feedbacks as well. Let me just share my screen and then we can start. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Satyam.
Okay, cool. So one pretty interesting fact, and this is something that everyone should be aware of. Now, we know that cards are the most prominent method of collecting payment, and it's not going anywhere. So, it's not that over a period of time, cards will get sort of, sidelined and there would be other payment methods that will take its place. But we have seen very, upcoming trend post-COVID or during COVID, let's say, where a lot of people are migrating and looking for more alternate payment methods to be enabled, right? So that's where you see the first tab that 50% of global payments are now non-traditional, or people are looking for local payment methods, so that they have that first trust that Saurav also talked about, that once you have a local checkout or checkout in the local currency, that trust builds into the buyer, and then your cart improvement or cart checkout essentially is more successful. And then obviously, given that these are cross-border payments essentially that we are talking about, so when you compare it with a domestic payment method where, let's say, a UPI or a net banking essentially, you will have more cost to bear in that sense. So they are expensive. One key reason is there are a lot of intermediaries involved. There's a card issuing bank, then there's network that is processing those payments. Then there would be a bank in India, for example, for Indian merchants, would be then settling it to their account. So there are multiple parties, and hence an international payment is always a bit more expensive compared to a domestic payment. And that's why you don't see in the market the pricing that essentially goes for domestic payment methods, right? And last but not the least, this $130 billion figure is for past 2 years essentially. And if you see, 82% of global organizations are affected by payment fraud. And this is something that most of you would realize. So when I move to the next slide, right? So if you see here, there is a declining trend of share of cards for global payment methods, right? So we talk about cards taking substantial space. They will still be there as a substantial space, but then there are local payment methods, something called such as Apple Pay, or maybe a Samsung Pay, something on those lines, payment methods which are very prevalent in the local geographies. And these payment methods become very critical for a buyer to essentially have that user experience, that confidence on a website that he might be shopping from for the first time, to take that decision to finally go ahead and make the payment and successfully complete the whole transaction. So that is where alternate payment methods become very critical. Or apart from cards, how many more payment method you offer? So just a very basic example, right? All of us use, let's say, Zomato, Swiggy, or Blanket, something on those lines, right? So as soon as we see multiple payment method options, right, in our domestic balance, we see UPI, we see net banking, we see, let's say, cards and wallets and BNPL options, everything. So that gives us confidence that I have that flexibility. I choose which payment method to go for. Razorpay is trying to give similar options to their merchant in different geographies. So essentially, an Indian merchant now has option, and I'll cover it later. where you can give more options to your buyers than just card. So card is something that you would find all across the payment service providers. But are there alternate payment methods that anybody else serves? I mean, I'll let you answer that. But we are going to cover that, and that's something that will add value to your business as well. So few key factors that are driving this change from just cards to local payment methods or non-traditional payment methods are obviously, I think, tech adoption due to COVID is one significant reason that we have seen. And then obviously with the financial or fintech space itself evolving globally, there are a lot of newer payment methods that are evolving. So BNPL is something that is, let's say, came into the picture during COVID, or I mean, it took prominence in post COVID essentially. So that's one way to look at it. Now, this is one slide I'll spend some time, because this is something that all of you would relate, whether you have just started your cross-border journey or if you would have been in the market but would have faced this. So essentially, for every dollar, for every $10 that an e-commerce sort of company earns, they spend $1 fighting for fraud or chargeback, something on those lines. And then every single merchant, I mean, 91% is a significant number. So every 9 out of 10 merchants would have faced some level of fraud, essentially, or a chargeback case during their cross-border journey. Now, there are two ways to look at it. You get a fraud or a chargeback sort of claim, and you get demotivated and say that I'll shut down my international shop. I don't want to do it. And then there's other way to look at that. I understand that this is part of doing business, but how can I mitigate it? How can I lessen it? How do I do more so that I don't get these fraud payments in my ecosystem, or I don't face so many chargebacks? So this is something that you should be aware when you're choosing a payment service provider, and this is where this thing becomes important. So protecting your business interest against charge and frauds essentially becomes very critical. And then, does the payment service provider that you're using, is it compliant with the latest payment methodology that is globally launched? So I'm sure a few of you might have heard about 3DS, non-3DS, and even in 3DS post October, we all the payment service provider across the globe are expected to migrate to a newer version, which is 3DS 2.0. And then similarly, there are other checks and balances that each payment service provider would have. So I would obviously talk about Razorpay and what Razorpay is doing, but then this is how essentially you should also look out for that. The payment service provider that you choose, what are the steps that they take? What is the methodology that they have in place to mitigate fraud and chargebacks? And then last but not the least, shifting to payment methods which draw significantly lower percentage of charge or chargebacks or fraud is something that you should think out for. So for example, just being dependent on cards obviously means that you would have higher, let's say, chargeback to sales ratio or fraud to sales ratio. Can you lessen it by giving more alternate options where the risk of a chargeback getting raised or a fraud getting raised are lower, or the transaction itself will two-factor authenticated? So again, these are few key pointers that you should look out for when choosing a payment service provider. Now, while I've covered these 5 points more or less while talking to you in earlier slides, but these are the 5 key points that I think everyone here should be aware of when you are looking for an international payment solution. One is, what is the kind of payment coverage? Is it only cards? In cards also, is it only MasterCard, Visa, and Amex, or is it also Diners, JCB, or a few other prominent names? And how many currencies do you support? Then fraud protection, I've talked in detail. I'll still talk in detail a bit further there. And compliance, again, India is the most heavily regulated market that I essentially have worked in, or I have merchants working with. So essentially, compliance is something that is critical. I think most of you would have heard of a document, FIRS, which is forward inward remittance statement. Now, for all the acquiring that you do, right, it becomes critical to have that thing in place so that you can further take any GST input credit, you can take any MEIS benefit, or if you are a SaaS platform, you can take any SEIS benefit essentially. So these are all benefits that merchants look out for. Do all payment service provide FIRS in some sense? Yes, they do. The challenge lies in how soon can you procure it. So somebody can take 3 weeks, 4 weeks, somebody can take 45 days, somebody can take even 60 days, and somebody would send you only once you request. So that also becomes a key piece of information that you should keep in mind, that how soon can I have my access to my FIRS for the transactions that would have happened, let's say in the last month, because you can then further go claim your benefits and sort of keep that working capital moving for yourself. So this is how the 5 key pointers that anybody here should look out for when choosing an international payment solution. Now, this is just a small elevator pitch. I won't go into too much detail of it, but Razorpay supports 100 plus currencies. We have twice the fraud protection management. What I mean by this, I'll cover in the later slide. And there are certain factors that we have inbuilt. There are certain acquisitions that we have made. There are certain partnerships that we have made, basis which we are in a position to give you better success rate compared to any other payment service provider in the market. And it's as high as a Stripe or a PayPal. And I'm taking them as a benchmark because they are a US company, they have their local acquiring there. And still we are able to meet that benchmark. So that's something to talk about Razorpay essentially when you use them. And then obviously improved ROI is something related to more economical method, or the cost of acquiring for each transaction that we charge our merchants for vis-a-vis, let's say, any competition in the market. So that obviously adds into your bottom line and hence helps improve your ROI. So this is how exactly, and this is what I was talking about, right? So this is the first part, right? The international cards. Now, any payment service provider you work with, they would be dealing with this. They would be providing happily this service there. They are able to process MasterCard, Visa, Amex, Diners, or any other payment method. But what changes with Razorpay essentially are the two other line items, right? Now, this is alternate payment method, and that these are local payment methods in different geographies. So, Jagan in his slide earlier called out that apart from US, UK, Europe, Australia, and then Middle East are the three other markets which are very, very critical for Indian exporters. And we know the reason. We have Indian diaspora living there, so we know a lot of likeness of having the same items getting sold there. So essentially, that's one key reason. And then obviously, a lot of foreigners are influenced by Indian lifestyle and they would want to buy those products. So alternate payment method is something very critical to have. And this is similar as a checkout. And I'll take you through, I'll take a minute post this presentation to take you through how a Razorpay checkout looks like, because that will give you the experience essentially of how this alternate payment method works. But essentially, for a lot of payment service provider in the market, PayPal would be a competition. But trust me, PayPal for Razorpay is a partner. And at the Razorpay checkout, if you hold a PayPal account, right, you can link your PayPal account with Razorpay. Essentially, you have that option. And at the time of checkout, even PayPal will show up as a payment method. So essentially, you are giving that freedom to your buyers that they can pay through, let's say, their own credit card through Razorpay, or they can go ahead and choose to pay through PayPal. Apart from that, depending on which geography that particular order originates from or buyer originates from, we also show local payment methods. So Trustly is something, and you can read it here. It's essentially a network of 6,300 banks in Europe, and it almost covers their 95% of population. So what essentially Trustly is, you can relate it to as a phone pay or a Google Pay essentially, or a Paytm, which is an instant bank transfer method. So again, this is a two-factor authenticated payment method, which means this is a bank transfer, and hence the risk of a chargeback or a fraud getting raised, right, are essentially nil, because somebody would have logged in to their banking account, they would have raised and successfully done it after giving their OTP or whichever way it works in those local geographies. And essentially, these are more safer payment methods. And hence, you should always look out if you can offer more payment methods. With our experience with alternate payment methods or local payment methods in different geographies, every merchant that we have enabled on this payment method, we have seen significant shift from card payments in those geographies to this payment method. Because obviously, like we are adapted to using UPI or let's say a Paytm or something on those lines. Similarly, in this case, those people are adapted to using these payment methods. So if they see that as a checkout, they definitely go ahead and essentially use this payment method, and that's more safer. Now,
Okay,
look.
Satyam, sorry, quick time check, Satyam.
Sure. I'll just rush through it. So essentially, the last bit is local payment methods or bank transfers. Essentially, this again is something critical. While if you have large bulk orders, if there's somebody who wants to make a bank transfer, essentially, we now enable that as well. We enable virtual bank accounts for our merchants through which they can accept a bank-to-bank transfer essentially through local payment network, essentially ACH or SEPA in Europe, essentially. So that is how it will work. Now, this is again the only slide I'll spend more time in. And Jagan, thanks for the time check, because this is very critical for all of us here. And this is to deal with fraud protection, right? Now, Razorpay has two risk engine. Both of them are inbuilt or let's say in-house. And then we also have a third-party risk engine through which we run each of every transaction. Now, this takes less than a few seconds as a user experience, but this is a real-time check that we do on each transaction, and we score them. Depending on the score that we get, right, we either deny that transaction in the ecosystem or we let it pass if it has passed the benchmark. This again is something that not everybody in the market has. They generally would have an AI or a software that would do a risk analysis of each transaction, but then definitely they won't have multiple risk engines there in place. And then something very critical is velocity check. So we know each sort of e-commerce merchant or any merchant would have its own persona depending on the product that they sell. But then we in the market are the only ones which have velocity checks in place. So essentially, these are small rules that we write for our merchant with a post obviously discussion with them, which essentially cater to blocking certain transactions. So just live example, right? If you don't want a card to be used on your network for more than once in, let's say, a week, then essentially we will block that card getting used in any time within the next 7 days. So that velocity check comes into the play again. And then AVS is something which is very unique. While it is working for US, Canada, and UK geographies, what it does is at the time of checkout, we also ask the cardholder to enter the billing address which is linked to the card. Now, if it is a fraudster who's trying to attempt, they would obviously input a wrong address because they never have the address detail or the billing address detail. So once the fuzzy match comes in and we match it, whether it's an exact match, whether it is, let's say, somewhat match or it's no match exactly. So depending on the arrangement or the agreement that we have with the merchant, we will pass certain essentially payments, and we will obviously deny certain payment. So these are the three checks that we have in place to protect our merchants from any fraudulent or chargeback coming into the place. But let me still very clearly call out, right? There would still be transactions that will still bypass all these things and still get into the system. How do we fight it? We cannot fight each and every transaction, but then this limits the exposure that a merchant would have compared to if this was not in place. So that's clearly something that you should always look out for. I won't get into detail, but I'll spend just one quick minute on the FIRS part, which I called out. So essentially, this is a piece of document most of you might have seen, but in case you're not, take it as a small KT. This is essentially a document which proves that you have accepted foreign payments, you have exported something, which you take to your banker, which then issues you an EBRC. And then they sort of, then post which, once the EBRC is issued, you can then sort of take any MEIS benefit, like I called out, or any government benefit that you want to take. So this is again very critical. What we have done is on the Razorpay dashboard itself, you have on the settings dashboard, you can go ahead and download the FIRC with a single click. For all transactions in the past month of FIRS is available within a period of next month, 10th and 15th. So essentially, within 10th day of last payment, you would have all the FIRS available, all the transactions available, which you can download with a click and then obviously take it to your banker. So that's the only part that I would want to close with, which was FIRS. I'll happy to take more questions essentially and take you all through with this. But this is how exactly Razorpay can be enabled on Shopify plugin. I'm not going to touch base on it. I'll rather take more questions and answer your questions now. So I'll take a pause here and Jagan, over to you.
Thanks, Satyam. That's super useful. I think as you mentioned, like we'll open up for questions because that's where it's going to be very helpful for our merchants. Over to you, Sahil, and then to Chaitanya.
Yeah, hi. So my first question is that we do domestic also, and sometimes the user comes from outside India and pay through an international card, but the product is delivered domestically in India only. Now in that case also the FIRS is getting generated with the purpose code of exports.
Right.
This is something that we don't want to do because it's not actual exports. So please share some light on that. And the next question is that we've recently started selling outside India. So Razorpay Pay team has told us to have a separate account because the bank also demands a separate international transaction for recon purposes. We are having a technical difficulty where I think Razorpay has asked that we need a separate server. Now we use Shopify, so we don't have a server control. So please share some light on that also. Thank you.
So on the first part, right, on your domestic sort of transactions, essentially, I mean, in the domestic environment, an international card is used. So see, any payment service provider will treat it as a foreign export, essentially, right? What you can do is essentially you would have your shipping bill details, you would have all those basic details, right, where the shipment is delivered within India, right? So for the likes of, let's say, Zomato, right, which uses Razorpay for processing these international payments, etc. Essentially, obviously, Zomato doesn't serve outside of India, but they get a lot of expats or foreigners who are living in India, essentially use Razorpay to, do the checkout and process it using their international card. Now, the only pointer that you might have to give to your bank is, because you would have an FIRS, but you would also have your shipping document proving that this particular payment was delivered, the order against this payment was delivered in domestically. They won't raise a question. It's just that in the domestic environment, an international card was used. That's the only use case. They won't sort of, be after you essentially to close that shipping bill or something of those lines, because that won't even appear on your EDPMS because it hasn't gone outside of India. So that's a very clear-cut case. You can always give a disclaimer that this was domestically delivered.
Bank is not asking for, sorry to interrupt. Bank is not asking for any document. So essentially, these FIRS that you generate, does Razorpay, send these FIRS to RBI Bank or to Reserve Bank of India, or these are just created and given to the user, and then it's not sent anywhere else? Because once the shipping bill is generated, then the bank asks questions. But if the shipping bill is not generated, we only have FIRS. So are those to be ignored? Because on the FIRS, the purpose code is of exports.
So essentially, very clearly, in this case, the only simple thing is that because these are generated on our banking partner's letterhead, right? So obviously the data goes to the central government also, I mean, RBI essentially in this case. Now, like I said, unless the shipping bill appears in EDPMS, you don't have to worry about anything, because that will be still treated as a domestic transaction for your. It's just that international card was used, and hence this particular use case arises. That's it. And just to the last part of your question, right? I have my team here. If you can just share your MID, right? We'll get someone to look into it, what exactly is pending, and then we'll contact you. I don't want to spend this forum's time on that operational issue, but just put your MID here on the chat. My team will pick it up and we'll get back to you most probably by tomorrow on how to solve for that.
Thank you.
Jagan, over to you.
Chaitanya?
So yeah, thanks, Jagan. So Satyam, I have a couple of questions. First would be, when you say localized payment methods, is there or do you have Apple Pay that'll be integrated eventually? The reason I ask is they have in September they have started Pay Later, right? Meaning, so all these buy now pay later companies that are there, or the EMI based companies, so they have been in business for decades and probably acquired, let's say, 10 million customers, right? Now Apple at one go has brought their 1 billion user base using buy now pay later, and the kind of conversions and is probably going to be humongous, right? So
Chaitanya, I
so,
get it. Yeah, I'm sorry to take it here from here itself. One key thing is right now the 5 options that I showed, right? Trustly, Poly, Zero Pay, Support, and PayPal. These are the only 5 options we have enabled. We are already in touch with a couple of BNPL companies in US, which we want to enable on our platform. So essentially, like I called out, right? Razorpay is trying to build an ecosystem where you have all the payment options for the merchant and the buyer, essentially, right? So we will be in that scope. I can't give you or commit a timeline right now, but we are enabling each quarter at least 1 or 2 more payment methods. So if you are a Razorpay customer, you will be able to see that. And in any case, we do publish PR articles as and when we enable these payment methods. But very clearly, we know that BNPL is something that we have to onboard. So we are already having those active conversations. But as and when it goes live, you will be hearing about that for sure.
Okay. And for ACH and other transactions, local bank transfer, is it powered by Plaid, or is it a manual process where you just show the bank account details
So
and the
essentially,
customer?
it is something that Razorpay has acquired on its own. Essentially, it is something that we have built. So it's not powered by a third party as of now.
Okay. Okay. So my second question is, when you say uh, 2 times as much the fraudulent, fraud prevention,
Hmm.
right? How does that impact the conversion itself or the success rate of a transaction?
Yeah. So obviously there will always have to be a balance between success rate and how many checks you want to place, put in place. That is a conversation that we can have, maybe offline. But essentially, obviously, the more checks and balances you put in place, the success rate will suffer.
So,
That's a very clear call out. But
right.
obviously, there is always a balance that needs to be maintained. That you cannot say no to all, let's say, 70% transactions that are coming to
Okay.
you, because a lot of them will still be genuine. So that's a balance that we can, obviously talk about in detail offline. But that's a balance that we will have to make.
User can still select it. In a sense, Stripe has a feature where I can let them know what my appetite for risk is.
Exactly.
And I
So
tell
same
them,
is with Razorpay. The risk engine that I talked about, right? The risk threshold that we set, that is set basis our conversation and your risk appetite.
okay, okay, fair enough. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Satyam. Is there any other questions for Satyam on payment related or payment platform related things for your cross-border store? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So thank you very much, Satyam. That's a very detailed one, right? Thank you so much for that. But Satyam is still going to be around in case you guys need any questions around that or any support required for that, right? Thanks once again, Satyam.
Thanks. Again.
Now overall, I'm not sure if we have to take a small break. Any yes, no? Okay, I'll take that as a no, and then I'll continue with the next one as well, right? Because I'm a little worried, like if we go for a break, then by the time we come back, right, I might lose out on certain merchants, right? So just cautious of that. Over to you, Richa, for the next session on the logistic solutions, the common pain points that customers are facing, and how you wanted to go about solving for it, and how delivery can help solve for that in the long term, right? Over to you, Richa. You are on mute.
Yes. Thanks, Jagan. Hi, everyone. And Satyam, a very insightful presentation. I must say, even I learned a couple of things. So let me present my screen first. Hey everyone, this is Richa. I am part of Delivery's cross-border team, and I head the SME D2C cross-border piece at Delivery. And as Jagan mentioned, we're going to talk about three things. Three basic yet very important things to be cross-border ready, right? So the first will cover the key pain points, the key questions that a merchant can have when they are thinking about cross-border shipping, followed by what are the compliance requirements to be exports ready, and lastly, how can delivery help? What does delivery bring to the table? Talking about the key questions, right? So we have been talking to a number of merchants, and more often than not, the basic questions that they have is how long will it take for my shipments to be delivered? How much will the shipping, what will the shipping cost be? And how do I price my product to make it economically viable for me, especially in these days when the shipping cost is basically increasing on a month by month basis, right? So let's talk about the average stat first. There are two types of shipping solutions available in the market. One is the postal shipping and the other is the express shipping. When I say postal shipping, this is offered by India Post now, and erstwhile DHL Ecommerce also used to offer this. So this was a service that would take 15 to 20 days to deliver shipments, and this will be very, very cheap. It was a very economic service, mostly catered to people who are shipping very low ASP products and wherein their consignees are not too keen on express delivery. But as I said, DHL e-commerce is not functioning anymore, and the only solution available in the market is the Post services, which brings us to the express delivery options, right? So all these players, delivery, DHL, FedEx, you name it, they are all in the express business mode, right? So when we say express, this basically means shipping from anywhere in India to the key markets of US, UK, Middle East is roughly 4 to 6 working days, right? This can be lower as well, but still the benchmark, industry benchmark is 4 to 6 days for end-to-end delivery. The second point is, how is pricing calculated? And this is a very key question that I think people usually feel confused about. The first thing to consider is, how is the chargeable weight calculated, right? So your shipment, for example, can be a 500-gram shipment, but because of the packaging, the overall space that it will acquire would make it higher than 500-gram shipment for us. How this works is, number one, you have to look at the gross weight, which is the 500-gram weight in this use case that I spoke about. The other thing to consider is, what is the volumetric weight of the shipment. Now, for international packages, volumetric weight is calculated by taking into account LBH, so length, breadth, height, divided by 5,000. So for calculating the chargeable weight, we take the higher of these two, right? So whatever is the higher of chargeable volumetric weight and the gross weight becomes the chargeable weight for the shipment. The rate cards, they work on a 0.5 kg jump. And everyone, right? When I say everyone, so any player would start from a 500 kg, 500 grams weight break, right? So essentially, even if your shipment is 250 grams, you would be charged for a 500 gram weight slam. Similarly, if it's a 4.2 gram shipment, 4.2 kg shipment, you'll be charged at a 4.5 kg weight slab, right? So these are the things that people are usually confused about, and this is why I've brought into this forum. The other thing is, as we said, what should be the minimum shipment value to make this sort of economically viable, right? In our experience, we have seen that our e-commerce parcel usually weighs between 0.5 to 2.5 kg typically, right? And as a benchmark, the express shipping cost of a 1 kg parcel to the US is $15, right? So we strongly recommend that if your product, you need to price your product to be at least $45 plus to make it, an attractive offer for your consignees, essentially to make the product economically viable in the cross-border arena. Moving on, how does customs clearance work, right? So all these integrators, the courier partners, the delivery, DHL, FedEx, etc., they will act as the clearance partner for both the origin and the destination clearance. The key point about express clearance, which is the CSB4 and CSB5 clearance, is that this is an informal clearance. So to make the cross-border e-commerce user-friendly, the government has brought in a lot of regulations, and the express clearance usually takes 4 to 5 hours. So it's a very, very fast-paced clearance, informal clearance, as opposed to a commercial cargo clearance, which can take even up to a day or two for formal clearance. The other key point to note is, what is the duties and taxes which will be applicable for your product, right? Duties and taxes are completely dependent on where you are shipping. What are you shipping? For example, to the US, to make it very, very easy, the US government doesn't impose any duties for shipments which are less than $800 in invoice value, right? So which basically covers 95 or 98% plus of your e-commerce shipments that are being exported from India. However, if your shipment invoice value is over $800, you will be levied taxes which depend upon your product category, right? So typically the duties range between, I think it's typically 13 to 15%, but depending upon where you are shipping again and what you are shipping. A similar figure for UK is 135 GBP. So you can see the clear difference between US and UK's threshold for duty. The thing that I want to touch upon, and I think Jagan said that a lot of people have raised question, is about returns. So I'll talk about returns and payment options. So let me talk about payment options first. Number one, COD is not allowed in cross-border shipping. Some players offer a prepaid only shipping model. For example, delivery also, we offer a prepaid model for shipping. We do not accept postpaid payments. And some players offer postpaid only. And obviously there are mixers, there are prepaid players who offer prepaid plus postpaid payment options. So when I say prepaid, it's 100% prepaid. And obviously if there are other duties and taxes which are levied on your shipment, then these are billed back to the shipper as and when we receive the or the player receives those bills from the from overseas. The other thing is, as I said, the postpaid model. So typically people offer 15 days or 30 days credit period. Sometimes if the customer insists, and which we have seen some customers actually want a 7-day credit period as well. So this can be customized based on the customer's requirement. But as I said, Delivery doesn't offer that, but there are players like traditional players, DHL, FedEx, etc. They all offer the postpaid services. Regarding returns, right? Returns in cross-border is expensive. Number one, you should you should have enough data to see what kind of returns you are experiencing in your domestic business, and then you should try and sort of make it you should try and make your portfolio in a way so that the returns can be minimized, right? So we should look at why I'm saying this is because let me talk about what are the returns options. Number one, there's an option to abandon the shipment at destination. This is still a less costly proposition when it comes to cross-border shipping. You're abandoning the product completely. It can be destroyed, it can be abandoned at destination, but it is not 100% guaranteed, right? This depends upon the commodity type. Not all products can be abandoned at the destination. The other thing is, if your product is not delivered in the US or in the or anywhere, we will return it. We'll return it back to India if we choose not to abandon it, or if we are not able to abandon it. This attracts two kinds of charges. One is obviously the expensive shipping charge for bringing it back to the India, and also import duties, right? So as I said, returns is expensive. We should try not to offer returns, or we should try to minimize returns based on the experience of other players or based on our data. Or if for this I'll say, we often recommend to new sellers that do not offer a return policy at all for your cross-border shipping. Moving on to the compliance requirements. The number one requirement for you to be cross-border ready is the import-export code registration. It's become very easy, and I've linked the website here. It's like as easy as applying for a Aadhaar card, right? So typically it takes 2 to 3 days for the IC to be ready. If you do not have an IC, I'll suggest this is the first step to be cross-border ready. The other thing is that your AD code has to be registered as iState. iState is the customs website. The third thing is you need to have an LUT number. And when I say LUT is the letter of undertaking which a customer or which a shipper provides if they have not already paid the GST, right? IGST. And typically people are using this option more and more, because even though GST can be claimed back later, it's still an additional process that you have to do. And hence, if you have your LUT number, you can just enter that to sort of avoid this this process of taking the GST claim benefit at the later stage, right? The other important thing is you need to have your GST and IEC linked at the iState website, right? If there are any questions, we can come back to the process of how to do this at a later stage. When it comes to clearance, there are two types of clearance when it comes to courier clearance. The first one is the CSV4 clearance type. This is applicable for samples or gifts. Samples or gifts. The gifts are obviously something that you're sending to, it's a C2C thing, right? So there's no commercial involvement, there's no commercial transaction at all. A sample can be something, for example, sometimes a shipper is sending something to a manufacturer based in the US. It's just a sample for them. But the key thing is that the shipment value should be less than 25,000 rupees for it to be classified as a sample. Sample or gifts, they move under a CSV4 invoice type, as opposed to a commercial shipment. All the e-commerce shipments are commercial shipments, right? So commercial shipment is something which is wherein a transaction has happened. Somebody is paying you money for providing you that, for you to provide them that product. So CSV5 invoices are required for a commercial courier shipment. There is also another type of shipment, which is a complete commercial shipment, which I don't think is the forum does not possibly has any interest in that, but I like to talk about that. Any shipment if it's more than, if the single box is more than 68 kgs in weight, or the shipment value is more than 5 lakh rupees, the courier clearance that I spoke about previously does not apply, and the shipment will then go through the formal clearance mode, right? So that's another clearance mode, but that's a cargo clearance mode. Now, the other key and the tricky part is the documents requirement, right? For simple products, like for example, for your fashion or for Indian ethnic wear, handicrafts, etc., you do not require multiple sets of documents, right? And typically the shipment is exportable using just the invoice, the product invoice, right? However, when you're talking about shipments like, wooden shipments, wooden products or leather products or any chemical product, any cosmetic, then there are multiple other documents which are also required. Now, I have listed a couple of them here, but as obviously I'm sure if you guys have been shipping abroad, you'll know that it completely depends upon what you're shipping, and the product would essentially dictate what is the document that is required. For example, MSDS would be required for any chemicals, cosmetics, or oil-based shipments. Declaration that your product does not contain any any non-exportable leather would be required if you are exporting any leather bags or any leather items, etc. Right? I want to highlight here is that Delhivery has an in-house customs team that provides 100% proactive support for all kinds of documentation requirements, especially for a new shipper or a first-time exporter. So moving on to what all does Delhivery offer in terms of the international space. First of all, as I think most of you will know, we offer 4 types of services overall. Within domestic, we offer FTL, LTS, or line haul services. We offer express delivery services. We offer warehousing. And international is one of the newest business lines in Delhivery, right? So international services, these are end-to-end services from first mile in India to last mile anywhere in the world, and also the opposite, right? So we have recently launched the import services, import express services. So anywhere to anywhere in India is in both for express as well as cargo modes, import and export is being enabled by Delhivery. What is our USP? We offer, as I said, door-to-door services and with end-to-end tracking. What we have done, how we have enabled this is by getting into very deep, very strategic relationships with FedEx and Aramex, right? I'm sure you're aware that FedEx is also an equity partner with Delhivery. So these are very key relationships which enable us to have really, really good pricing in the market. We are also very deeply integrated with them. So any kind of scans, right? So end-to-end scans are visible on our platform through the single AWB of Delhivery, which is generated as you book the shipment on our portal. Through these partners, we are able to sort of cover 200 plus countries, and obviously Delhivery's network is the biggest in India. We offer 18,000 plus pin code serviceability within India. And our panel for booking is extremely user-friendly, and we have spent close to 6 to 7 months doing extensive user research, doing figuring out what works for a user, what doesn't work for the user. And I'm sure a lot of you would be aware or would already be using our panel. So things have happened. We've launched the newest version, I think a month ago, and the whole idea is to make shipping very, very easy for a small seller, right? And as I said, the door-to-door service with end-to-end tracking. We have in-house customs team. We have dedicated customer support team. To make everybody's life simple and make global shipping easy for the all kinds of shippers. Actually, I'm focusing more on the SME and the D2C world, but yeah, it's for all kinds of shippers and for both express and freight mode of shipping. So that's it from my end. Happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richa. I think that's super insightful. I myself have 2 questions to ask you, but
Yeah.
I'll let others go first if anyone has any questions. I think there's a question on, does Delhivery do LCL? That's from Sanjay.
Yes, Sanjay, we do LCL. Sure, Chaitanya. Yeah, we do LCL, Sanjay, both in imports and exports. So would be glad to connect with you offline. I'll just drop in my email ID. If you could just come back to me with, where is it? It's an imports or exports, or what is the commodity, what's the rate, shipment readiness date, etc. The usual. We'll be happy to take it ahead.
Sure, Richa. Thanks for
Yeah,
answering the
and
question.
Sanjay, I'm just thinking in my email ID if you guys wanna
Sure,
reach
sure.
out to
Sounds
me.
good. Sounds good. I will connect you on the email.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Over
Yes, we offer break. So I just take your question from Anu. We offer break bulk as well. I'm assuming this is for exports, Anu. Yeah, so break bulk, it's a recently launched service, and we offered it because a lot of our so in fact, for break bulk, there are two options available, and I think I'll be happy to take this offline. This is the general break bulk, wherein it's cargo clearance in India and cargo clearance at the destination. But we also realize that a lot of e-commerce shippers are looking for cargo clearance in India. Essentially, if you are shipping a lot of parcels in a single day, we consolidate all of that, and we bring it, for example, to the US, and at the US we do a courier clearance, right? So this offers uh, two benefits. One is you do not get no duties levied because we are clearing the shipment on an individual basis at the destination. And the first is a lot of times I'm sure that if somebody is shipping, let's say 25 to 30 parcels a day, the whole process of generating shipping bill to filing it with the bank, etc., that becomes a compliance heavy thing, and a lot of people times e-commerce sellers do not have the bandwidth or the manpower to take on these manual work, right, which are required for. Sorry, I started reading the comments. Yeah, so happy to connect. So we offer both kinds of breakable solutions. Anup, if you would like to discuss this more, please reach out to me on my email ID.
over to you, Sahil.
Richa, hi. So we are using delivery for international shipments, and
Yeah.
we are into gems and jewelry segment, and even healing crystals. So healing crystal part is going smoothly. There's no problem. But when it comes to jewelry, so your delivery has. Denied that they will be shipping any silver jewelry, although we have all the documents and
Yeah.
certificates. So in that case, we don't have any other option but to go with either the foreign post office or have a separate FedEx account or DHL account and then ship it through it. So can you please
Yeah. Yeah,
shed?
Sahil, that unfortunately we are not, we've taken a conscious call to not totally service imitation jewelry. Semi-precious or precious jewelries are sort of a no for now. We were doing that in the past, but there were some learnings, and it's like price to benefit, cost to benefit doesn't make sense for us now. There were cases of fraud, there were cases of a theft, etc. So it's a conscious call to not enter into this segment at the moment.
So it's actually creating a lot of friction for us, because for some product we want to use a complete solution as an aggregator. So
I understand, but precious and semi-precious jewelry is an org-wide no for us at the moment. So why not use FedEx for all, right? Because FedEx is our strategic partner. So you can it's very easy. If you're facing any problem with FedEx, you can reach out to us, and we'll be happy to solve for all the problems that you may have with the FedEx piece. We understand that FedEx is not a very easy company to work with because of their infinite bureaucratic requirements. But yeah, if you're facing any challenges with FedEx, please do reach out to our team, and we'll be happy to take it up with them.
Okay, Richa. A question from my side. I'll go next. You talked about the returns cost being very high, and the specific reason for that is also for a merchant who's sending the product abroad, and to process the return, they have two options. They can just abandon that product, or if they wanted to get it back, again they'll have to pay the import duty for the product. For their own product, which they have sent it to a foreign country, to get that back in their hands, in India they have to pay the import duty, and that's really costing the merchant. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, that's correct. And they also obviously return plus the international shipping. So it becomes very costly. And Jagan, I think you have brought this a lot of time, but we haven't really come across cases wherein, for me, returns and cross-border don't go hand in hand, right? We have come across very few cases wherein somebody wanted returns, and typically these returns are also not because the user was not available to the user did not want the shipment. Rather, these are the cases wherein we made, let's say, five attempts or 7 attempts to deliver, and we were still not able to sort of deliver the shipment. So these are the only cases that we have seen. I think people are typically sensitized and they don't want to return the shipment or not accept the shipment when it comes to international shipping.
Got it, Richa. Thanks. Maybe in the interest of time, one last question.
Yeah, so negotiate the oversized package. And what are the oversized? These are very standard prices, Karthik, right? So these are all customizable, right? So do you use FedEx services or delivery services? If yes, we can discuss this offer. This can be done depending upon what is the relationship with the shipper, depending upon what is obviously the business volume that they're bringing into us.
Cool. Okay. Thank you very much, Richa. That is very, very insightful. I know the number of slides were very minimal, but it was super insightful for all of us. Thank you once again for taking us through the compliance specifically. I think that was something which we were all looking for, and thanks for showing some insights on that. Thank you once again, Richa.
Thank you, everyone. Happy to be here.
Thanks everyone, guys, for waiting until this time. So the last session for the day for this particular webinar, one of the key pillars of growth, and Anshuk will keep Anshuk, I'm sure he is a little angry at me because every time I save his presentation for the last, but I also see him as the superstar of the presenters, right? So over to you, Anshuk, to take people through the marketing gimmicks or tips, whatever that we could call, to be successful in the international markets.
Thank you so much, Jagan. So happy to be part of this cross-border webinar. I think more and more merchants I talk to, and the common trend I have heard them speak is that cross-border is going to be big in the next 3 years. So super happy and I think it's just the right time to be talking about cross-border. Plus, we're also in the November and December year-end period where we have seen that the US sales usually accelerate. So just the right time.
Yes. Next week is the Black Friday, Cyber Monday week.
Yes.
So people are gearing up for that.
Absolutely. So for everyone present here, my name is Anshuk. I'm one of the co-founders of AdYogi. We are a marketing platform. We work primarily with direct-to-consumer brands to help them scale across Meta and Google ecosystem. So over the last 6-7 years, I've worked with 300 plus brands. I've personally interacted with many founders. And today I'll share with you some of the key insights we have learned when we have worked with brands in taking them cross-border. So just moving on, this is going to be a very nutshell, the takeaways from today. I'll talk about 1 or 2 case studies of brands who have scaled very effectively cross-border. A few things about which any brand needs to consider when they're starting international marketing, a bunch of best practices across Meta and Google, and towards the end, some sort of a campaign structure just in case if you're already running cross-border campaigns or you're planning to start those, then this recommended structure could be beneficial. So this is, I'll speak about Trendia as a brand. This is a brand which is in women ethnic space, scaled very rapidly in the US geography. In fact, as we speak, around 60 to 70% of their revenue comes from US, primarily using Meta and Google ads. And what we learned today is some of the best practices they have used. These are some of the key pointers. They've been able to scale very rapidly in a 6-month period. Categories like apparel, jewelry, cosmetics have scaled well for them. Geographies, US, UK, and Australia have been the bigger geographies. And they're also seeing their CTR increase month on month over a period of 6 to 12 months. So question is, what are those targeting options, campaign strategies which brands can adopt if they are selling cross-border? A few more examples of brands which have done well cross-border. These are brands like Malmal, Koski, Trendia, Art Carrot, Amar Chitrakatha. I know many of them look in the apparel space and more ethnic apparel space, but we have seen brands across categories do well in the US. and the North American region. So I think this is one slide, which is, I think, an important slide to understand. These are all the FAQs I typically come across when I talk to a lot of founders who are trying to do cross-border. So some important things to keep in mind. Number one is from a setup perspective, and I'm talking from a marketing setup perspective. Generally, it's recommended to have separate ad account for your cross-border campaigns. Of course, if you're just starting, it might still be okay to run in the same campaign. But the moment you want to scale your cross-border campaigns, better to have a different ad account across both Facebook and Google. It's better to have a currency as US time zone because it will help you analyze your campaigns much better. Again, catalog needs to be in US dollars if you're talking about the North American region. And we also recommend that if you have a separate website for your cross-border, then it's better to have a different pixel. Usually, it's also a recommendation from the Meta team that separate website means separate pixel. The benefit that comes with a different pixel is your lookalike audiences will be much better if you have two different pixels versus if you use the same pixel across the India and the cross-border website. On the website, I know Saurav spoke about a lot of things, a few of them which are relevant from a marketing perspective. So if you're using the same website, of course, you will need a currency converter to be enabled. If you're using a different website, chances are your pricing in the US and the India will be different. I'll speak more about it in my subsequent slides. But it's very important that you implement an auto redirection, which means if people in the US are coming to your India website, you may want to redirect them to the US website, and vice versa. If visitors in India are coming to your US website, you may want to redirect them to the India website. Shipping, delivery, return policies are very important to be mentioned because Google Merchant Center and even Meta has these policies that if you don't have return policy on the website, chances are your Merchant Center or ad account might get disapproved. So make sure you have all the policies up on the cross-border website as well. From a marketing perspective, what I've seen is super important again is have a budget which is allocated to your cross-border campaigns. We have seen a lot of times where brands might say, okay, let's start international. Maybe we'll try with the first 1 lakh of spends. And if we get ROAS, we'll scale further. The problem with that strategy is becomes very tough to get good, reliable sales in your first 1 lakh of budget. So usually what we recommend brands is have a budget for, let's say, roughly a 3-month period. What we recommend generally is like a minimum budget of $5,000 per month, which comes to roughly about 3 to 4 lakhs per month. But have that budget set aside for your cross-border campaigns, because chances are your first month, your performance may not break even. You may not see a very good ROS because you're just starting up. But if you have that 3-month horizon in mind, there's a good likelihood you might start seeing some good results by the 2nd and the 3rd month. Another point there is very important that you don't rely only on Facebook and Google ads. Sometimes we have seen that brands, when they go international, they would switch on the Facebook and Google ads and expect that just the ads portion will scale their business. We have usually seen that Facebook and Google ads are multiplier, but you may still need some more organic push in the market. So you may need to sign up with some local influencers. You may need to be present in one of the local marketplaces, or figure out what is the other way outside Facebook, Google, so that you can drive some organic traffic. And lastly, I think a common question which we get asked is, which geography should we go with? Is it the Middle East? Is it the Southeast Asia? Is it the North American markets? Again, the answer depends from brand to brand. But my experience has been that if you see in your Google Analytics that there is some share of traffic coming outside India, and let's say North America is the 2nd biggest market outside India, then maybe the answer is North America could be your next big bet. So just analyze your current data and you may get some lead indicators on what geographies already started to get you some traction. And that could be your next big foray in the cross-border. So that's a bit on the things to consider when starting international. Now I'll talk about a few strategies which have worked for different brands we work with. Number one is what we have seen is pricing in US. And when I talk about US is not necessarily US. Take that as an example of a cross-border. The same could be applicable for your Middle East as well. But pricing in a geography like US and India generally cannot be the same as what we have seen. Now, I know that you might think that Indian pricing plus the shipping charges could be your pricing in the US, but what we are missing out here is the acquisition cost in India and the acquisition cost in US are very, very different. So on an average, we have seen that CPM rates in the US are 3 to 4 times of India, which means if India, your acquisition cost is 800 INR, which is roughly about $10 today, in US, the chances are your acquisition cost could be as high as $30 to $40. So you need to factor in that incremental acquisition cost in the US when you are deciding the pricing. And we have seen brands do that very effectively. Sometimes, like say, for example, we see this example of Koski, a product which is priced at 4,000 in INR in India is priced at $75 outside India. So we see that very often that the pricing in India and pricing in US is usually very different for brands. And that's just the way it works, purely because, like I said, the incremental acquisition cost is quite high in the US. So when you're starting a new geography, I think the first question could be what part of your catalog you want to launch. And second is how do you want to price the catalog given the incremental shipping and the marketing cost. Second, what we have seen is in India, I know a lot of us we in the DTC world have seen that people are over-indexed on Meta as a platform. We see across most of the brands we work with 70 to 80% budgets going on Meta, which includes both Facebook and Instagram. But our experience in the US is Google is a much stronger platform in the US. We see Performance Max actually work very, very well in the US. So when you're starting international, a good rule of thumb could be that put 50% of your budget across Meta and 50% of your budget across Google. Of course, on Google, majority can go to your Performance Max campaigns because we have seen that Performance Max works very well on the Google ecosystem. You can also put some budget on the Discovery and YouTube campaigns. For brands which are targeting, let's say, ethnic wear, or targeting Indian diaspora in the US, generally we have seen that there are some very good targeting options on Meta, which can help you target specifically Indian diaspora. 2-3 examples there. One, you can do language targeting. So like if you see on the screenshot, there is something called Bengali, Hindi, Tamil sort of a targeting which can be done. It helps us target the Indian population in the US. And again, same as applicable for UK, Canada, Australia, Middle East also. In terms of interest, there are interests could be Indian brands, like for example, Fab India or W for Women could be an interest on Facebook, which you can target. Celebrities and even, let's say, designers like Manish Malhotra, Sabyasachi could be interest groups or are interest groups on Meta platform. So think about some of these brands, designers, behaviors, and celebrities, and you will be able to filter out the Indian diaspora in the US. Of course, assuming that you are selling ethnic and targeting the Indian population. Of course, if you're targeting the Native Americans, then most of the other targeting options on Meta would also work quite well. Specifically, if you're going for North American countries, then our recommendation is try to run one single campaign across US, UK, Canada, Australia. You can also try running separate campaigns in each geography, but our experience has been that generally the CPM rates shoot up the moment you run, let's say, separate campaign in Australia, a geography like Australia, because one, it's expensive in terms of CPM rates. Second, also the target population size is quite small there. So we have seen good results coming from a single campaign run across all the 4 North American countries. I've also seen that usually what works well in the US also can be translated across UK, Canada, Australia. The assumption here is you have all the shipping set up in these 3 countries as well. Now, specifically for Meta as a platform, we have seen that catalog linked ads actually work very well in the US. In India, you may be running catalog ads. You may also be running your custom ads or newsfeed ads or video ads, which is great. But in the US, we have seen that the catalog linked ads feature of Meta works very well. This is also called as dynamic ads for broad audience, or DABA as Facebook usually refers to. This is basically catalog ads for your prospect campaigns. I'm sure most of you would already be running catalog ads for your remarketing campaigns, but catalog ads for prospecting also works very well in the US. The reason it works very well is we have seen comparatively lower CPM rates in the US when you run a DABA campaign. Plus, you can also add your frame overlays. You can also, let's say, add some nice price overlays and discount overlays. So we have seen good results coming from your catalog sales prospect campaigns. Now, this is again one difference between your Indian and the cross-border campaigns. In India, we honestly haven't seen great results coming from the traffic campaign. We have run traffic campaign across multiple brands over the last 6-7 years. Usually our experience has been the traffic campaign does get a lot of traffic, but the average session duration on the Google Analytics is not very high. Plus, we also see that when we remarket the traffic from traffic campaign, usually it's very tough to get conversions. Part of the reason is also because in India, the target customer base is 200 million people, in fact, 300 million people on Meta today. And traffic campaign tends to get a lot of junk traffic on the website. This is not true in the US. We've actually seen great results come from your traffic campaign or view content campaigns in the US. So one of the recommendations is also when you're starting in the US, it might be a good idea to start with traffic and view content campaigns, purely because you will be able to get a lot of clicks by this route. If we run only conversion campaigns, the CPMs and CTRs, CPMs and CPCs are so high that you may end up driving one session at, let's say, $1 cost. And that becomes super expensive. Imagine you're spending $100 a day, you will practically get only 100 sessions on the website. So good idea is start with traffic, view content, maybe 30-40% budget, and gradually you can ramp it down to maybe a 10-20% budget over a period of time. On the iOS impact is actually quite big in the US because the share of iOS is quite high. A good fix we have seen there is conversions API. So Facebook has this technology where you can send data from the website backend directly to Facebook servers, Facebook and Instagram. In India, conversions API is definitely important, but it is even more critical in the US geography. It's fairly straightforward to do as a Shopify merchant because Shopify has direct integration on conversions API, but make sure you enable this on the US website. A few things on Google. So Merchant Center promotions work very well. Like I said in the beginning, the Performance Max campaigns are the core of Google in the US geography. So do run the PMax campaigns, but add Merchant Center promotions. Now, what is Merchant Center promotion? As you can see on the screen, you can see the small free shipping. That's a part of the Merchant Center promotion. You can also see something like special offer or 15% off as part of your Merchant Center promotions. We have usually seen that the click rates are much higher when Merchant Center promotions are applied. Another key difference between US and India rather is there's a lot of income data which Google has in the US geography. And we have seen that income targeting on Google Display works quite well. In India, I'm sure you would have realized that Google Display is very difficult to make it work. Plus, the kind of signals and data which Google Display has in India is not that great. In the US, we have seen that they do income targeting. So you can target top 10% of income bracket. You can target 11 to 20%, 21 to 30%. And we have seen these buckets work quite well when we are running display campaigns in the US. They work quite well. Sale, I know sale works in every geography, but we have seen that when it comes to the US, discounting has a much bigger impact. We have seen brands which have rolled out 10%, 20% coupon codes and significant increase in the sales just during those sale period. So do make the most of the sale, and sale need not just be Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas. If you are selling the Indian diaspora, then sale could also be Diwali, Holi, Rakhi. What we see is Malmal as a brand, they did a Rakhi sale in the US and they did exceptionally well during the Rakhi season. So a lot of Indian festivals could also be sale events in the US. One catch there is it has to be done ahead of time because people need some time for the shipping and the delivery to happen. So we recommend at least a month in advance for any sale event in the US. Best sellers can be pushed. Separate section, sales section can be made on the website. Coupon codes contextual can be picked. For example, Diwali 10 or BFCM 10, 20. That usually works quite well. But sale and discounting as a strategy works much better in the US geography, what we have seen compared to India. The last slide for today is when it comes to US, Meta and Google are not the only two platforms. Interestingly, TikTok is actually very big in the US. So do make the most of TikTok as well. Maybe if you're just starting your campaigns, you might be spreading yourselves too thin by starting on Meta, Google, and TikTok, all three. I understand it's a fairly involved task, but let's say you set up with Meta and Google, and over a period of time you want to scale up, then TikTok might be a very good platform. There are some nice targetings on TikTok, like hashtag targeting. What you see on the screen is something like a hashtag Indian food could also be a targeting on TikTok. So these are very innovative ways of reaching out to the Indian diaspora in the region. So that's a sort of a wrap up for today. This is just one last slide about how do you structure your campaigns. Sort of a recommended structure. What we have seen works very well. So on the prospect, as you can see, catalog sales campaign with all your products could be the first one. Traffic campaign, like I spoke about, view content campaign, and one catalog sale campaign for your top category. On remarketing, the standard remarketing campaigns, what you run in India can also be applicable in the US. And on Google, Performance Max is what we recommend. Discovery can also be run for one or two top categories. And TikTok, again, can be run for one or two top categories. So focus a lot on top categories or hero products across Meta, Google, and TikTok. And usually we have seen that works quite well. So that's a sort of a wrap from my side. Over to you, Jagan, and for any questions.
Thank you very much, Anshuk. Super helpful, and lot of stats and data that is very helpful for us. I'm sure like merchants would have been found it very helpful as well. Now the Q&A session. Any questions to Anshuk?
Anshuk, hi. Hi, this is Yasin from Gramia Oils.
Hi, Yasin.
So we are in the oils and fats segment, right? So and we are trying to launch in USA for the NRA diaspora, basically, right? And do you think TikTok works well even for NRA diaspora, and also half our audience are over 35, 40 years old? Should we still look at TikTok for USA?
Yes. So see, TikTok, when it comes to for Indian diaspora, it does work well. We have tried some of the ethnic brands on TikTok, they do very well. But the demographic age is important, because we have seen that in the US, TikTok is big, but still between the 20 to 30 age group. So if you feel a big share of the target customer base is, let's say, 35, 40, then TikTok need not be the primary platform to start with. You can probably still run a pilot or two in TikTok to see the response.
Got it. Also, one more, follow-up question. So we have a decent modern retail presence in US. So what would be like the best way to make sure that the people who've been buying on the supermarkets find the website or the ads somehow? Do I do pin codes on these supermarkets and run ads, or what do I do there?
That's a good question. What we haven't seen great success when it comes to hyperlocal or pin code based campaigns. The problem which comes, Yasin, there is the moment you run a hyperlocal or pin code based campaign, your CPM actually shoots up. So it's sort of, even if you have a higher conversion in the vicinity of where you have a modern retail presence, just the higher CPM will more than subset the higher conversion rate. So the net ROS is actually almost same or lower.
Understood. Cool. Do you think this advice stands good for India also, Anshuk? Because in India also we do hyperlocal. We are present only in the metros because it's a heavy object, right? We do hyperlocal deliveries only. So do you think for India also I would do something like this? Sorry, out of context question, but we do only in the 5 cities ads. Do you think that is also expensive way to look at do it?
We have seen in India as well, the moment we filter out the cities, let's say we do only like a Bombay, Delhi campaign, we've usually seen that the CPM rate shoots up. So what we typically recommend is, unless of course the delivery is not there in rest of the India, in which case you are forced to run it in top 2, top 5 cities. If the delivery happens in entire India, then we recommend generally either a top 50 city campaign or an all India campaign.
Understood. Understood.
Within
Got it.
cities, Yasin, just a point to add, hyperlocal is not recommended at all. So if you're doing South Bombay, then that's not a great idea.
Yeah, that I get it. Sure. Thanks, Anshul. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Yasin.
Anyone else would like to go next? Oh, I think Anshuk has made it super detailed, right? Of course, definitely, I found it very useful, Anshuk.
Maybe it's the last session, right? It's very tough to
No,
get
you see, like there are like I think the active ones are still there. I don't see many dropouts at all since the start of the session 2 hours ago. I think pretty much people are there.
Jagan, I just needed, I know I overshot my time, but there's something because I've seen both Saurav getting this question and even to some point, even Richa got this question of how essentially, that paying native feature, essentially, how do they display the local currency, right? At the time of checkout. So that's a feature that Razorpay has built. I just wanted the larger audience to take them through. Is it I mean, can I do that? I mean, I'm just asking for permission.
Sure, Satyam. But just give us 1 or 2 minutes. We'll just wait for
Sure.
questions, and then we can open it up for the entire set of audience. Okay, guys, maybe last 30 seconds. Any specific questions to Anshuk on marketing tips? Anything? Cool. If not, okay, Chaitanya, over to you, Chaitanya.
Sorry. Hi, Anshuk. So,
Hi,
Anshuk, thank
Chaitanya.
you very much. So, we already sell in US, the North American region, EU, Australia. So, it's all been organic. So, every single sale has been organic. So, to date, we have spent zero, like literally zero, right? TikTok, we have presence, but it's all again organic now. The social media team of Mr. Beast has reached out to us. So we have made something for that guy, and we have already shipped it. So this Friday is when he's supposed to unbox stuff live. So hopefully, out of all the tens of thousands of souvenirs that he's gonna get, he's probably gonna open it. Fingers crossed. But does it make sense for us to run ads like starting today till 31st of December and see any results at all, or might as well just target next year?
Right. And see, if the focus is only November, December, let's say if we say that December 31st is till when we want to focus on paid ads, then my suggestion would be that we might actually be pressed against time, because even if you decide to start today, by the time the campaigns go live, it will be probably another week or 10 days. And the learning gets over, it will be December, and it might be too close to the December and Christmas time. So if it's only about November, December, then I feel it might be late. But if you feel you may want to continue it to next year also, maybe Jan, Feb, March, and slowly keep the momentum going before we accelerate during the festive next year, then it might be definitely recommend starting.
Okay. Perfect. Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chaitanya.
Thank you, Chaitanya. Okay, now we are towards the, or rather at the end of this webinar, 2 hours long webinar. It felt like it went very quickly. Thank you very much, merchants, for staying active throughout the webinar and keeping ourselves very engaged. And thank you once again, presenters from Adyogi, Anshuk, Satyam, Razorpay, Saurav, Marmeto, Richa delivery team, and not to mention our own guy Anand for taking up all the questions early on. Right, so thank you very much, guys. What we will do is, of course, as mentioned during the start of this webinar, I will be sharing the recorded session as well as the PDF versions of the slides used for your consumption at a later stage. That's one. And number two, now we will stay in this for the next 5 to 10 minutes for any questions across topics that we can help you with. So we'll be there around for the next 5 to 10 minutes, and at that time, Satyam, you can take us through like what we are planning to share with us, right? But before all, just if you could open up your cameras, we can take a quick snapshot And I request Anand to do that because he is super good at taking pictures. So, but I know it's a laptop device, but yeah, still.
Anant, what a USP Jagan has shared, that Anant is good in taking pictures. So you
No, I'm a super photographer too, Saurav.
no photographer here on this. You have to take a screenshot.
Jagan's like, what is the key to take the screenshot? So I think it's better for me to do it.
No, that much Control Shift 3 should help. Cool. Please, guys, just for a minute, if you could just open the camera, that would be really helpful. Awesome. Thanks everyone, guys, for staying throughout. Now over to you, Satyam. And if you have any other questions as well, guys, we are going to be around for the next 5-10 minutes. Please ping us, and we shall help you out.
Hey, thanks, Evan. Thanks everyone for still staying. I'll just take the 90 seconds on this. Essentially, so this is something called as Pay Native, which we have built basis the feedback from the market, right? A lot of you were here talking about, how would you be in a position to show the local native currency of the buyer, right? So essentially, this is something that's already live. It's a standard process or a standard product that we have on the market. You don't have to do it essentially at Razorpay. So let's say in this case, and this is available on the website itself. So if you go here, there is a demo page, and the pricing here mentioned is in INR, right? So once you click on Pay with Razorpay, what you would see is that you would see, first of all, this is a demo page, so you will see a lot of Indian payment methods as well. But you would also see the instant bank transfer method that I was talking about. But I'll just go to cards essentially here. So as soon as I enter let's say a US card, right, or a UK card for in this example. So as soon as Razorpay detected that this is a UK card, Razorpay started showing at the time of checkout the local currency as well. Now, mind you, while you are showing the product at your website, obviously it's not going to help them. It's only going to come into the force or into the play when you are checking out or the merchant is checking out. So they have that intention, right, to buy the product. Now, what we are doing here or what we are enabling is essentially ensuring that this card conversion happens. So once they see the local currency in their native paying currency or the card holding currency, the chances of them going ahead with the checkout is more, because now they don't have to go to, let's say, a Google and do a INR to GBP or INR to USD kind of conversion. They'll be able to manage it simply, and they would know how much they are going to get charged on their card. So that's a very neat feature that we have built now. Essentially, they will also get a lot of other options to pay essentially. But the first currency that will come up will always be the card currency. So essentially, if the card has been issued in GBP, the GBP option will come. If it is issued in USD, a USD option will come. So essentially, this is a nice feature, neat feature. But yes, like I called out, this will kick in only at the time of checkout and not, during essentially when the product is getting displayed on the website. So that was the only part that I wanted to take time out and just, sort of, because I saw a lot of questions coming on this angle. So I just wanted to answer that. So that's it, Jagan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I wanted to, take merchants to this essentially as well.
No problem, Satyam.
So any questions on this, I'd be happy to take. Team is still here, so we'll be happy to answer them.
Yeah. Go ahead, Shri and Sam. Sorry, I forgot the name. Going by the brand name. Did we lose him? Looks like we lost him. Any other questions, guys? Maybe we can wait for 30 more seconds.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, my question is that we are facing issue in Shopify payments from the last 2 months, in spite of doing the immediate thing.
Is this related to the billing one?
Yes.
Yeah, I will take that up separately. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I'm sure
just want to make sure our stores, Jagan, sorry to interrupt. Just want to ensure our store is not frozen. Holiday season, payment nahi hua, so, just.
No, it wouldn't happen. And our support team will be able to help you guys all out on particular issues, anything specific to billing. But despite that, if you're not able to make any payments and if our support team is not able to help you give a resolution in that short time, so please do wait. But meanwhile, please do share more details with our support team so that they can investigate more to help you guys better.
Sure. Thank you.
But otherwise, do not worry more much about the store getting frozen. But please do stay in touch with our 24/7 support team, and keep sharing your insights or whatever difficulties that you are facing in terms of making the Shopify Pay monthly subscription payment. Yes, Karthik.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Karthik from Neon Attack. So we use two payment gateways on our checkout page. Let's say one is Razorpay and the other is SnapMint. So the problem with our checkout page is we cannot select a primary and a secondary checkout option. SnapMint is auto selected every time we do a checkout, and which is causing a lot of problem because we are getting a lot of orders via BNPL, which is charging us a lot in terms of commissions. We wanted to add Razorpay as our primary mode of payment, but we cannot do it from the Shopify stage. Is there anything we can do with that?
Karthik, so to answer that, essentially, I don't think so. That is, I mean, we can't address it. I will ask my tech team to essentially look into it if there's something that they can help you with. We have a dedicated tech team which helps with integration as well. So maybe if you can just put your MID here, at least my team will look into the use case and help you solve if it is solvable from our end. Otherwise, I'll lead Anand and Jagat to essentially throw some light if there's something that they can.
Yeah, so it's something that we are aware of. So reordering the payment gateway based on the merchant preference. We're working towards this. We hopefully have to have a fix soon. We're looking to have it as soon as possible because it's something that payment partners and merchants have reached out to us like. Thanks, Karthik, for flagging this. I'll just pass it back to the product teams again. But it's the same issue that we have with most of our merchants. We should have a fix in place.
Okay.
Thanks, Karthik, for the feedback. All right, then. I think we are 7 minutes past 5. That was our scheduled time, but happy to take any queries. And thank you once again, guys, for staying engaged throughout this webinar. And as you guys know, like if you still have any support with respect to cross-border or anything else, map 2022 at shopify.com is the go-to place for you guys. And we will be able to address any of the queries post this webinar as well. Right? Thank you once again. Bye. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jim. Thanks all.
Thanks, Chetan.
Thank you, Chetan.